From this day until your last day, you are Ramsay Bolton.
I swear I will uphold your name and your tradition.
Roose Bolton is stabbed by his own son in the 6th season. Tywin Lannister is killed by his own son in the 4th season. And if you put those two deaths side by side, if you strip away the house sigils and the geography and just look at the pattern, you'd swear these men were brothers, not allies, not partners, brothers, because every single thing that defines Roose Bolton also defines Tywin Lannister, right down to the way their stories end. Murdered by the sons they created, destroyed by the cruelty they taught, buried by the legacies they thought would outlive them. Now, the show never puts Roose and Tywin in the same room. They never share a scene. They never even speak face to face. Their collaboration happens entirely through ravens and intermediaries, two minds operating in parallel without ever needing to coordinate in person because they already think the same way. And yet they orchestrate the most devastating event in the entire series, the Red Wedding.
The Lannisters send their regards.
Together, from opposite ends of the map, Tywin in King's Landing, Roose at the Twins. Tywin provides the political cover, the Lannister gold, and the promise of a new title. Roose provides the proximity, the military position, and the knife. Walder Frey provides the location, the feast, and the guest right to violate. And between the three of them, they destroy the entire Northern Rebellion in a single evening without losing a single soldier on the battlefield. That's not an alliance of convenience. That's two men who think exactly the same way, operate by the same rules, and fear the same things, recognizing each other across a war. I mean, start with the most obvious parallel, the silence. Roose Bolton never raises his voice. Multiple characters in the show describe him as a man who doesn't possess real human emotions, who will silently stare at whoever offended him, mentally calculating how to destroy them. Jaime Lannister, who has met every dangerous man in Westeros, says that Roose's silence is more threatening than any open display of cruelty. Tywin operates the same way. He doesn't shout, he doesn't threaten. He sits at the head of a table and speaks quietly, and every person in the room leans forward to hear him, not because they want to, but because the alternative is being the person he's quietly deciding to destroy. Both men understood the same principle. Real power doesn't need to announce itself. It just needs to be felt. So, look at their philosophies. Roose's personal motto is a peaceful land, a quiet people. On the surface, it sounds almost benevolent, like a man who wants stability. But look at how he applies it. He doesn't want peace because he values human life. He wants quiet because noise attracts attention, and attention invites rebellion. His version of peace is a population too frightened to speak above a whisper. Tywin's philosophy is identical, just dressed in different words. He doesn't say a peaceful land. He says a Lannister always pays his debts, and the debt he's collecting is obedience. He destroyed House Reyne and House Tarbeck, not because they wronged him, but because they defied him, and defiance is a disease that spreads if you don't kill it at the source. Roose flays, Tywin drowns. Different methods, same message. Disobey me, and I will make you an example so thorough that nobody else will ever try. Look, the parallel extends to how they treat their sons, and this is where the mirror becomes almost eerie. Both men produced sons they couldn't control. Both men spent years trying to mold those sons into something useful, and both men were killed because they misjudged how dangerous their own children had become. The thing is, Roose's problem with Ramsay is not that Ramsay is cruel. Roose is equally cruel, he just hides it better. Roose's problem is that Ramsay is loud about it. He flays Northern Lords alive and leaves the bodies where everyone can see them. He hunts women through the woods for sport. He mutilates Theon Greyjoy so severely that Theon loses all value as a political hostage. And Roose scolds him, not for the cruelty itself, but for the spectacle. He tells Ramsay that no tales were ever told of him, and asks Ramsay to consider whether Roose would be sitting where he is if they had been. The cruelty is fine. The attention is the problem. Discretion is the lesson Roose is trying to teach, and Ramsay refuses to learn it. Right? Now look at Tywin and his children.
You are an ill-made, spiteful little creature, full of envy and low cunning.
Tywin's problem with Tyrion is not that Tyrion is incompetent. Tyrion is the most politically gifted of his children. Tywin's problem is that Tyrion exists. He's a dwarf, he drinks, he visits brothels, and his birth killed Tywin's wife. Tywin looks at Tyrion and sees a walking stain on the Lannister name. And just like Roose, Tywin's criticism isn't about capability, it's about image. Tyrion is brilliant at the game, but he's the wrong shape for the family portrait. Cersei is ambitious, but reckless. Jaime threw away a political career for a white cloak. Tywin's children, like Roose's son, are tools that won't stay sharp in the way their father needs. Well, both men also share a specific blind spot. They believe their children are afraid of them. Roose assumes Ramsay will never move against him because Ramsay needs the Bolton name, needs the legitimacy, needs the structure that Roose provides. He underestimates Ramsay's willingness to trade long-term security for immediate power. When Walder gives Roose a true-born son, a legitimate heir who threatens Ramsay's position, Roose doesn't see the knife coming until it's in his chest. Tywin makes the same miscalculation with Tyrion. He assumes Tyrion will absorb every humiliation, every insult, every public shaming, because Tyrion has no choice. Where would he go? What would he do? Tywin pushes Tyrion past every breaking point a man has, and then pushes one more time, and Tyrion shows up with a crossbow. Actually, the symmetry of their deaths is almost too perfect to be coincidental. Roose is stabbed by Ramsay in the exact same manner as when Roose himself stabbed Robb Stark at the Red Wedding. The show itself underlines the irony. Roose dies in the exact same manner as his most famous victim, the father who taught his son that betrayal is a valid political tool, is betrayed by the student. Tywin's death mirrors the same principle. The man who spent decades telling Tyrion that family legacy is everything is killed by the son he refused to include in that legacy. Both men built machines of cruelty and control, spent decades perfecting them, climbed inside them, and were crushed when the gears turned. Both men even told their sons the same story, that they nearly killed them at birth. Tywin told Tyrion he wanted to carry him out to sea the day he was born, but kept him because he was a Lannister. Roose told Ramsay he nearly had the child thrown in the river, but kept him because he saw his own blood looking back at him. Two fathers who looked at their newborn sons, considered murder, chose mercy, and were repaid with the blade. The sons they almost killed became the sons who killed them. You see, there's a deeper layer to this that goes beyond personality. Both men married strategically, not for love. In the books, Roose chose Fat Walder Frey as his bride because Walder Frey offered him the bride's weight in silver as a dowry, so Roose picked the heaviest granddaughter. It's a joke to him. Marriage isn't about partnership, it's about resources. Tywin's marriage to Joanna was reportedly the one exception, the one genuine love in his life. But after she died giving birth to Tyrion, Tywin turned marriage into a weapon. He arranged Cersei's marriage to Robert for political power. He arranged Tyrion's marriage to Sansa to claim the North through Winterfell. He arranged Joffrey's marriage to Marjorie to buy the Tyrell army and their harvest. Neither Roose nor Tywin sees people as people. They see pieces on a board. Basically, here's the question the show is asking by placing these two men side by side across the same war. What happens when you build your entire life around control, and the one thing you can't control is the person closest to you? Roose controlled the North. He controlled the Red Wedding. He controlled his alliance with the Lannisters and the Freys. He controlled every political situation he entered, except Ramsay. Ramsay was the variable Roose could never solve because Ramsay didn't respond to incentives the way rational actors do. You can't threaten a man who enjoys chaos. You can't leverage a man who doesn't care about consequences. And yet, the same is true of Tywin. He controlled the Seven Kingdoms. He controlled the Baratheon dynasty from behind the curtain. He controlled the war, the economy, the small council, the crown. He controlled everything, except the sun sitting in the cell beneath his feet. Tyrion, like Ramsay, was pushed past the point where threats have meaning. When you've been sentenced to death by your own father, what is there left to fear? The answer for both Tyrion and Ramsay is nothing. And a man with nothing to fear is the most dangerous thing in the world to a man whose entire power structure is built on fear. You know, there's one final parallel that the fandom rarely puts into words. Both Roose and Tywin genuinely believed, that their legacies would survive them. Roose became Warden of the North. He held Winterfell. He married into the Freys and secured alliances. He legitimized Ramsay to carry the Bolton name forward, and within months of his death, every single piece of that legacy was erased. Ramsay was fed to his own dogs. The Bolton banners were torn down. House Bolton went extinct. The North returned to the Starks as if the Boltons had never existed. Again, Tywin's legacy collapses at the same speed. He built the Lannister dynasty into the most powerful family in Westeros. He put his grandson on the throne, his daughter at the king's side, his name on every debt the crown owed. And within 2 seasons of his death, Joffrey is poisoned, Myrcella is murdered, Tommen kills himself, Cersei blows up the Sept, and Jaime dies under a collapsing castle holding the sister Tywin would have disowned if he'd known the truth. The Lannister legacy doesn't just crumble, it detonates. Everything Tywin built is destroyed by the children he refused to raise with love instead of fear. Technically, that's the real proof that Roose and Tywin could have been family. Not the silence, not the strategy, not even the matching deaths. It's the fact that both men built their houses on the same foundation, fear, and both houses collapsed the moment the foundation cracked. Fear works until it doesn't. Control works until it can't. And the children you raise to be afraid of you will eventually stop being afraid. And on that day, every wall you built becomes a cage with you inside it. And maybe that's the lesson these 2 men leave behind. Not for lords and generals, but for anyone who has ever tried to control the people closest to them through fear instead of trust. We all know what it's like to mistake obedience for loyalty, to assume that because someone does what you say, they believe in what you're building, to confuse silence with agreement. Roose and Tywin are proof that fear has an expiration date. You can build an empire on it, and it will stand for as long as the people inside it are more afraid of you than they are of losing everything. But the moment that balance tips, the moment your son, your partner, your closest ally decides they have nothing left to lose, every wall you built becomes the thing that traps you inside with them. So the next time you watch Roose Bolton standing in a room, speaking softly, calculating, radiating the kind of quiet menace that makes every person around him lean in and shut up, remember who else does that. Remember the man at the other end of the map, sitting at the head of a different table, wearing a different sigil, commanding a different army, and running the exact same playbook. They never met. They never spoke, but they died the same death, told the same lie, and left the same legacy. Nothing. 2 of the most powerful men in Westeros, erased from history by the sons they made.